All right, guys, we are back with another wonderful episode of Leadership Matters with Dr. Sharon. I have another phenomenal guest for you this evening. She is Dr. Robyn Jackson. She is a best-selling author of 10 books, an internationally recognized keynote speaker and professional developer who believes that every child deserves a master teacher and that any teacher can become a master teacher with the right kind of support and practice. To that end, she provides practical and immediately actionable training and resources designed to help school administrators and instructional coaches give better feedback, provide differentiated support, help people become more accountable, and overcome toxic school cultures. Dr. Jackson is the CEO of Mindsteps Incorporated, a professional development firm located in Washington, D.C. And you can learn more about by checking her podcast, which is a wonderful podcast, by the way, schoolleadershipreimagined.com. Dr. Jackson, welcome to Leadership Matters.
I'm so happy to be here and thrilled to be talking to you.
Absolutely. I tell you, I have been waiting for this interview. Now, I've shared just a few things about you, but please take this opportunity to tell everyone who Dr. Robyn Jackson really is.
So really, I'm a teacher at heart, and I have a heart and a love for the profession. And I started out as a teacher. I was a high school English teacher, then I was a middle school administrator, and I had this kind of other calling. And so in the middle of my career, I was kind of moving on this trajectory. I quit my job and with no other plans other than I want to write a book. And then through some, God was blessing and leading me and led me to write a book the book was called Never Work Harder Than Your Students and Other Principles of Great Teaching. And then to write several more books, to start Mindsteps. And here I am. But in my heart, I'm still a teacher. And a lot of the work I do revolves around helping any and every teacher become a master teacher. And so I started out working directly with teachers, but I found that when I would share something with teachers, the teachers would say, this is great, but when my administrator comes in, what is he or she going to say about what I'm doing? And so then I began to shift my work towards talking to administrators, and the administrators would say, listen, I would love if they would do that, but they won't. And how can I get teachers to do this? So there was this big communication divide. So now a lot of my work is really with helping school administrators and instructional coaches and other people who are supporting teachers do a better job at supporting teachers and helping every teacher become a master teacher.
That is awesome. And I know one of your main focus is really tackling that school culture. And we know that that is so important to have a positive school culture that is conducive to teaching and learning. Talk to us a little bit about some of the things that you do to help establish that positive culture.
So this is a tough one. Culture it's a complicated issue. And so for a long time, I would try to address culture by doing, different things that they teach you along the way. But I soon learned that if you really want to address culture, culture is a collection of organizational habits. And if you have a toxic culture, the reason you have a toxic culture is that there is a habit that you have as an organization that's toxic. If you can figure out what the toxic habit is and you can address and change the toxic habit, you can change the culture. So a lot of my work now is not about treating symptoms. That's what I used to do before because I didn't know any better. But now I find that treating the symptoms, which is what most of us do, doesn't work. We have to get to the root cause. We have to figure out what is that habit. And that habit could be things like we don't talk to kids, we just talk about kids. Or the habit could be things like we use back channel communication rather than talking to each other. Or habits could be how we talk about kids. Or a habit could be a policy or way we've always done things where we've tracked kids. And so certain kids never make it into honors and GT courses out of habit. A habit could be that we lead from top down and we don't ever ask other people what they feel about it, or we keep all of our information close to us and we don't share with other people. When you find that root habit and you start to really address that root habit, the whole culture changes and you can get rid of that toxicity so that you can keep it from ruining the real important work that we're all here to do.
That's exactly right. And your latest episode of your podcast.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, congratulations on the podcast, Real Man.
Thank you.
So tell us really, what was the process for the birth of that?
Well, I've been sending out a newsletter every week for the last 12 years. So that was what we were doing with Mindsteps. And originally I started that newsletter for teachers and people who love teachers. So it has a lot of instructional strategies and things around instructional approaches. But more and more people were joining that newsletter, and they weren't teachers. There were people who supported teachers. So instructional coaches, assistant principals, district level people, superintendents. And they were reading that newsletter because they wanted to get strategies to share with teachers. But the problem was it would just wave the newsletter in front of them and say, here, this is important, do this. And they didn't have strategies for helping teachers take that information and actually put it into practice. So we started shifting. We split our newsletter. So we said, you can choose, do you want the teacher track? Do you want the leader track? And then I was writing 2 newsletters every week. But the leadership stuff was different than the teacher stuff in that I really needed to be able to explain it, because it's really about a mindset and a different approach to leadership. So I started thinking about what's the best way to do it. Doing it in writing meant that it would be too long of an article. So I started thinking, I think we need to do a podcast, and then I can really talk about what we're doing. And the idea is that the things that we were taught that help us to become leaders are things that are not going to help us transform our schools. And how do I get that idea across? And how do I give people the tools and the strategies to be able to do that? The other thing that was happening was I was doing a lot of leadership training in schools, and people were asking me for follow-up training, and I didn't have it. And I wanted a way to give people that kind of training, but do it for free. So the podcast came about as a way for me to give leaders the kind of training that they needed to really transform their schools, and to be able to offer that to as many people as possible, and to be able to do it for free. So every week I see it as kind of a mini training. Usually there's a download that comes with every episode. That's a tool that after you can take what we did in the episode and then use that tool to apply it in your schools. So we'll see how it goes. It's a lot of work, but it's some of the most rewarding work I've ever done, because I really get to train people on and address some of the issues, the questions that people have been asking me for years that I've never been able to address before.
I love that. And a lot of your work really centers around that effective teacher, like really providing effective feedback so that we can improve the practice of teaching. Mm-hmm. So tell me, what do you find is the greatest challenge for administrators in helping teachers move to that next level?
So there are 2. The first one I'm actually addressing on tomorrow's episode, which is judgment. The problem is that there are times when we're working with teachers, and they can be very frustrating. Certain teachers can be very frustrating, and we're trying to get them to move, and it's not working. And so somewhere in our heads, we start to say, that teacher doesn't care, that teacher shouldn't be here, that teacher's lazy. And the moment you start judging someone, you can't influence them. That's the problem. So we lose our ability to influence people's behavior the moment we start judging them. And the problem is that when we have this bigger vision of where we want to be, it's very easy to judge people who are not moving along. So how do you get yourself out of judgment so that you can be open enough to be able to have influence on people? So I think that's the first problem. The second problem is that the tools that we've been given, they were designed by an institution to maintain the institution, but they weren't designed to move the institution forward. So a lot of our leadership positions and our trainings come out of a need of the institution, not our own individual needs. Have you noticed that? Like for principal training every year, you get trained on how to do something that the institution wants you to do, rather than addressing your own leadership needs or your own needs in terms of helping you be more effective in moving teachers. And so our biggest challenge is that the tools that we were given were designed by the institution to maintain the institution, but what happens when the institution is flawed? What happens when the institution needs to be transformed? Those tools don't serve us because they were designed to keep the institution where it is. So our 2 big challenges, I think, are judgment. And the second challenge is I think that the tools that we've been given, they're not designed to really transform people. They're designed to maintain people. So as long as people are doing what they're supposed to be doing, the tools we have work fine. The tools don't work when people aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing because they weren't designed for that purpose.
Wow. So with Mindsteps, do you work with entire school districts or individual schools? Like, what's the process of working with Mindsteps?
So we have three different ways we want to serve. We want to get this idea out to as many people as possible that you need to rethink everything that you were taught about leadership. And quite frankly, as a teacher, you need to be on the pathway to becoming a master teacher. And as an administrator, you need to be doing everything you can to build mastery in all of your teachers, because that's the way you transform schools. So we have three tracks. The first track is do it yourself. So we have books, we have online resources, we have a lot of free resources, so that if you wanted to, you could take these resources and implement them yourself and have this transformative effect in your building, in your school, in your classroom. The second way is done with you. So we have workshops that we deliver to schools and school districts to work alongside them to help make this transformation happen in their schools, to help develop these skills for their teachers and for their leaders in their schools. And then the third way is done for you. So we have entire professional development kits that people can buy, and it has all of the training, all of the agendas. There are videos of me doing the training so that people can watch those videos. There are facilitator guides, there are administrative guides where administrators can go in and check to make sure teachers are doing what they were trained to do. There are look-fors, there are ask-abouts, everything you need to create an entire professional development program is in the kit so that it's all done for you. And then what we do is we coach you on how to use that kit to transform the teaching and learning that's happening in your school.
Wow, that's really exciting.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, teacher retention. That is a huge bucket for school districts all across the country.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is probably the most the barrier that keeps teachers in a school district, because we try to hold on to them?
Yeah, but so I think that a lot of teacher retention efforts are well-intentioned but poorly designed, because they are designed based on what people think the teachers' problems are, the reason that teachers are leaving, without really addressing the real reason. The number one reason that I found that teachers want to leave the profession is because they came into this profession to make a difference, and they're put in situations where they're not able to make a difference. So the fastest way to retain a teacher is to set that teacher up for success so that teacher can make a difference. Most teacher retention programs address symptoms, but they never ever set a teacher up to be successful. So a teacher will leave the profession. For years, teachers have never been a high-paying profession. It's just never been. So when people leave the profession, some of them leave for money because they can find other opportunities where they can support their families. But a lot of us will stay in this profession and work two jobs in order to support our families, because we love kids, because we believe in this work. And the problem is we do this, we sacrifice, we buy supplies with our own money, we work nights and weekends, we endure all kinds of insults from belligerent kids or belligerent parents or both. We do all of that because we believe this work is important. And then someone comes along and diminishes the importance of our work. And we think, well, why am I bothering? So we cannot diminish the importance of people's work. And I think that that's a big leadership problem that we have right now, is that, and again, that's where that judgment piece comes in, because if good teachers, this is my feeling, good teachers don't leave the profession. Good teachers leave bad bosses.
Absolutely.
Good teachers leave bad situations.
Absolutely.
But when people leave, they don't leave and say bye, see you. They leave with a lot of regret because they went into this profession because they wanted to make a difference. Absolutely. And something, a leader or a policy or a situation and a context have prevented them from making that difference they want to make. So they just go somewhere else.
Wow. That's deep, because it's true. But it is true. As a former principal, you really have to look at all of those things. And I primarily work with first and second year principals and assistant principals. And so definitely finding highly effective, not just qualified, but effective teachers is a priority. And so we try to fill those vacancies. And especially if you're in an urban, suburban school district, that turnaround, that churn of the vacancies is exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
So it can weigh very heavily on a new administrator.
Yeah.
So how can we, as those that support new administrators or administrators in general, really help support them in that effort to make sure that they're providing the teachers with the tools necessary to be successful?
So you mentioned two things. So the first thing is finding the highly effective teacher, right? And that's a paradigm that we've had, that that person already exists. But I can take a highly effective teacher and put them in a really bad culture, and that teacher's effectiveness will begin to disintegrate. So I can't just so I have this theory that leadership is dead and we really need to be focusing on buildership, the idea of being a builder. So rather than leading and standing with people and trying to move them forward and come on, let's go, you go out ahead of people, you build something amazing, and then you invite people to come to the thing that you built.
Wow.
So as a principal or an assistant principal, if I'm really concerned about finding great teachers and keeping great teachers, I also have to be concerned with building great teachers.
Yeah.
So what I do is I create a school culture where great teaching thrives. I don't focus on putting out fires. I focus on building a fireproof organization. And so that sounds very great. That's theoretical. But what are some specific ways that you can do that? The first way is that people hire for skill and they fire for will. And we've got that backwards, right? So when I'm looking at a candidate to come to my school, I'm looking for somebody who has the will, who shares the core values of our organization. If they do that, I can teach them the skills that they need. So yeah, I need you to have the requisite certifications and all of that because that's important. But beyond that, most people who are interviewing will have that. Yeah. Beyond that, I'm not sitting there looking, oh, this person has 10 years experience, this person only has 2 years experience. I'm looking at attitude. I'm looking at how committed are they? I'm looking at what are their core values and do they align with the core values of our organization? And then I'm making sure that the core values we say we have are the core values we live out every day. So let me give you an example. A school where I worked, we said one of our core values was that we honor diversity. That's on a lot of people's core value statements, but how many people honor diversity? And so what we had to do is say, okay, if we honor diversity, then we're going to have to rethink our master schedule. Because we can't have kids tracked if we really honor diversity, right? We're going to have to rethink our hiring and staffing. We're going to have to rethink how we manage discipline because we've got disparities in our discipline policy that have to be addressed. We're going to have to rethink how we address issues around race in the classroom and outside of the classroom. We're going to have to rethink how we invite parents to be a part of our school community. That core value affected every decision that we made in the school. And when we did that, and it wasn't just that core value, but we had 4 major core values. Those 4 major core values affected everything from how we did our master schedule, to how we staffed, to how we managed discipline, to what memos went home, to what holidays we saw. Everything was sifted through those core values. So what happens is, people then want to be a part of that community. Those core values being living and breathing entities in our school attract other people who have those core values. They want to be a part of that. They trust an administration that's predictable because what are you going to do? Oh, well, here are the core values. She's going to do something that aligns with that. People are coming to me and saying, we want to take this field trip. And then my question was, okay, how does it align with our core values? Everything we did that. So what happened was more and more people who shared those core values wanted to come work for us. So we were getting these amazing teachers as a part of our staff. Our interview questions were more about not what is your experience teaching 5th grade, but what are your core values? What do you think about this? What do you think about that with regard to our core values? When you build that kind of organization, you don't have to go find people. They will find you and they'll want to be a part of your community.
I love that. I love that. So let's stop right now. Where can people connect with you if they are interested in utilizing your services for their school or their school district?
So you can go to mindstepsinc.com. So that's MINDSTEPS, Mindsteps Inc. inc.com. And if you go into the website, if you want me to come to your school or you're interested in the services, there's a spot at the top that says schedule a call. Just click on that, schedule a call, and then you'll talk with our team. We don't have like a menu of services where you can just pick on this and do that. What we do is talk to people and figure out what do you need, and then we build that for you. So we don't have, it's very customized. So the first step is a conversation. And then, if you just want to do it yourself and grab some tools, the best way to get those tools is by listening to the podcast every week. And the podcast is School Leadership Reimagined. And you can find that at schoolleadershipreimagined.com. You can get past episodes, all the downloads. We send a tool most weeks when it makes sense. We're not going to make a tool when it doesn't make sense. But when it makes sense, we give you a tool download with every episode, and every episode's kind of a mini training on how to do something specific.
I love that. And so right before, you talked about parent and getting the parent and community involved. We know that parent engagement is critical to the success of a school and a school district, really, to be honest. What suggestions do you have for that new teacher starting out to really build those bridges and to really engage parents and have engaging things for them to do coming into their classroom?
So I think it's really critical at the very beginning to do two things. So the first one, we call it a student success plan. And you can if you go to Mindsteps or just Google student success plan, you can find things of it that describe it so that you can learn how to do this. But part of that success plan is you lay out, here are the criteria for success for my class. Here are the red flags that let you know that you're falling below the mark. And then here are the ways that I'm going to support you when you trigger a red flag. So with every red flag comes an instant support. So back to school night, instead of talking to parents about, here are my class rules, here's my syllabus, here's whatever, I talk to parents about, here are the success factors, the things that will make your child successful. Here are the red flags that you can watch for at home that will let you know when your child is struggling. And if you see any of these red flags, you should reach out immediately. So what you're doing is you're educating parents on how to best advocate for their child. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that I think that you should have parent communication before there's a problem. And I know that's kind of something that a lot of people teach, but few people do. So not just here are your child's grades, but here's what we're doing in the class, and here's where we are, and here's how you can support your child at home. I think you have to train parents on how to help their students with homework. So when you send work home, the parent doesn't know what the work is supposed to be, and they're waiting for their child to interpret that to them. And that's a mess. So why not send home, if you're sending home homework and parents are expected to support students with that homework, send home instructions for parents as well, so that parents have the tools they need. So the more you can empower parents to advocate for their children, the more parent engagement you're going to get. Notice I said engagement, not involvement, because I don't want them to just be involved. I want them actively engaged. I want them to see me as their partner. The moment I started doing that, all of the nasty parent phone calls ceased, right? So parents are calling me now, and instead of saying, well, you're not doing this, and this is too much homework, they're saying, listen, I'm calling because I think I saw a red flag. And I'm saying, hey, tell me about it. They tell me about the red flag, and I'll say, well, okay, I think that is a red flag. This intervention will happen right away. Oh, thank you so much. And we have a partnership going on.
Love it. We're just getting a few comments there, and someone wants to make sure that you post your contact information in the feed, and so we'll definitely do that.
Okay.
That's a wonderful administrator, Miss Crook, who I know personally, and then
hi, Miss Crook.
and then Jessica Grant, who I think must have attended your session at ASCD. She said the leadership versus buildership was an awesome point presentation.
Thank you.
Conference. So
thank you.
Awesome. Absolutely. These are two dynamic assistant principals that I know. So
wow.
Thank you guys for joining in with us. And so we will definitely make sure that Dr. Jackson's information is in the comments. I tell you, we can go on and on, but
I know.
podcast, because as you mentioned, Dr. Jackson, that podcast is so full of information that just helps someone immediately.
That's what my goal is. I'm hoping to do that, to make it a mini training. You can take it, you can listen to it, and you can go have an impact.
Absolutely. So do you have a social media following?
So I'm on Twitter and I'm in LinkedIn. And so I'm more on LinkedIn than I am on Twitter, although I'm getting better about being on Twitter. Twitter moves too fast for me. I don't have the attention span. So I'm getting better about Twitter, but I'm on LinkedIn, and I spend a lot of time engaging with school leaders on LinkedIn. So you can find me at Robyn Jackson on LinkedIn. Just go ahead and send me a request, and I would love to be a part of your network.
Awesome. So guys, go ahead and connect with Dr. Jackson. Go ahead and connect with her on Twitter as well. But definitely on LinkedIn. Dr. Jackson, this has been such a pleasure. Always, I follow you, and so that information that you just give, I had to have you on so that you can share with the audience. I thank you. I thank you so much for taking the time.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a real honor.
Absolutely. And guys, again, this is Dr. Robyn Jackson. She's the CEO of Mindsteps. Is that right? Mindsteps. Yes. So you definitely want to connect with her. I will put her information in the feed so that you can go to her website and get the podcast. So this has been Dr. Sharon, educator, author, and entrepreneur. And tonight, I'm not going to say leadership matters. I'm going to say buildership matters.
I love it.
Have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.